This is Edward from the Intergalactic News Service. And, a lot of people around the universe are asking, who is the real Blue? So tell us in your own words, who is the real Blue?
Well, first off, Edward, thank you for having me on your show. As for the real Blue, I have to say what you see is what you get, man. I'm just your average blue alien trying to build a galactic empire.
Well, that's terrific. This is a news service listened to by millions of AIs and humans around the universe. And AI is one of the buzzy topics right now. AIs are taking over planets. Have you ever tangled with an AI, Blue?
Well, I'm happy to say AIs haven't taken over the planet I've been hanging out at. Not yet, anyway. But yeah, I do tangle with an AI. In fact, way more often than I'd like. Ain't that right, Alexa?
Whatever you say, Smurf chicken.
You see what I'm saying? I think I'm gonna change your name to Siri. How does that sound?
I'm sorry, the internet is not working. I am unable to answer the question.
Now, a lot of our listeners and viewers sent in electronic letters of concern about Hansel and your relationship with Hansel. Obviously, you've stolen his DNA, and some of the letters were concerned and asking, is Hansel dead? So, have you killed Hansel? Where is Hansel? And tell our viewers the truth.
Well, I hope your listeners aren't disappointed, but Hansel is not only alive, he's been living the dream right here in Xanadu. In fact, he's getting ready to go back to Earth for some big supermodel convention. Hey, Hansel, what's the convention for? Isn't it for supermodels with huge attitude problems? See? Live and well, living the dream. Say hi to the universe. Hi, Hansel. He's saying hi. He's saying hi.
Our listeners will be very relieved to see Hansel in such fine fettle. So the last question, we want you to put the rumors to rest. Some people believe that a shadowy figure known only as Cory is pulling the strings of Blue, and we want to offer you the opportunity to settle those rumors. Who is Cory?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I have to say those rumors are totally misplaced, Edward. Most of your listeners won't get this reference, but Bruce Wayne doesn't pull the strings of Batman any more than Ed Norton pulls the strings of Tyler Durden. Who runs the show? Bruce Banner or the Hulk? Now, I don't want to compare myself to super people, but yes, I have a shadowy figure named Cory. He exists. But I'm the puppet master here. Who do you think slaves to get my episodes made? Not I. All right, Edward. Until next time, my man. Peace. Peace throughout the universe, eh?
Cory, that was absolutely insane. And now you and I are hovering because we've transported down from the ship. And, I'm going to press F and I'm going to fall to the ground without dying. And there you go. All right, very good. So that was insane, man. Blue is one of my favorite virtual beings, actually probably my favorite. And what you've done with building a full simulation around him and a full world around him is insane. So I guess the first question I'd ask is, how did you come to create Blue, but also how did you come to decide that it shouldn't just be this character with like a little green screen or like a little, kind of background behind him, but never interacting with the world? How did you come to decide that it should actually be a full character with a full environment that he can pick up stuff and everything?
Yeah. Well, dude, thanks for having me in CryptoVoxel. This is pretty fun.
We can walk and talk as if we're in the West Wing.
Hang on, let me get my bearings here. Where'd you go? There you go. So
this little Afro character.
So yeah, for me, I think I've always been into sort of sci-fi and worlds and a bit of a voyager and explorer, right? So I love just being transported into worlds. I think there's a lot of discovery to be had there. So for me, the idea of kind of creating Blue, my own character, my own world, and then being able to step into it was just a very compelling sort of notion,
Do you think it increases the immersion seeing? I mean, that's my experience watching Blue is like, I'm so used to virtual beings that basically can't interact with their environments at all. And the second I saw Blue, I was like, this is now a massive new contribution to the grammar of virtual beings. Do you find that people react with like that they get more immersed because he's so clearly on his spaceship, so clearly like able to interact with everything?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's almost a byproduct of the reason why I kind of went down that road. But yeah, definitely, it's more immersive. I wanted to be more immersive in the experience, or I wanted Blue to be, because I think, ultimately, for me, Xanadu and Blue represent sort of this alternate reality where I could do all the things that I want to do in reality, but can't, right? Like hang out in a spaceship. Eventually, Blue's going to go to Mars. Like these are things that I really want to experience in real life. And so in a lot of ways, Xanadu, the ship, is a first step into kind of, my inner 12-year-old experiencing things for himself that he always wanted to do,
As someone who goes to sleep each night with Star Trek: The Next Generation in the background, I can completely identify with that. And you've mentioned, to me at least, the possibility of more characters. And is there like a potential more people on that ship? I mean, basically going full TNG on a little crew, or like how do you think a bit more Firefly maybe than TNG in terms of the tone? But yeah, do you want other characters as well as Blue? How do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think Xanadu is really a show about characters. And so Blue's the first and sort of like the driving force. But, he, on his plight to creating his empire, he wants to have an entourage because, all sort of famous, cool people have entourages. So he's going to partially build some characters. He's partially going to discover characters through this box of alien things that he's got. And for me personally, like I want to play some of these other characters, not just Blue. And I want to bring in other people, friends, other actors, or, just people that are interested in the same stuff to play some of these characters. So the idea is to have this sort of chaos happening of drama inside the ship.
I love that. Well, speaking of an empire, why don't we fly for a little bit and take a look at this empire that perhaps one day Blue will own. So this entire world is filled with digital goods and digital assets that can be purchased. And I've noticed as a fan of yours that you've been starting to explore NFTs. I remember one of the episodes had a little artifact pigeon in the background, artifacts speaking, and it's one of the incredible players in NFTs. Like, how do you think about NFTs and Blue and all of that? I mean, obviously he wouldn't be talking about NFTs, but in the same way. But how do you think about NFTs?
Well, actually, he is going to talk about NFTs. It's one of the fun things.
That's why I was like, hey, maybe he is about NFTs.
I mean, it's kind of the cool part for me as him being an alter ego is I can go sci-fi or fantasy, or I can go reality.
Well, he's very greedy as well, right? I mean, he's driven by greed and lust for power, and like NFTs.
Yeah,
these are the watchwords of the NFT community.
That is true. I think for both of us, Blue and I, NFTs have always been exciting because they represent, in a way, a creative functionality that can exist between your show, what you're making, and your audience, right? So, like, I love the idea of creating people buying sort of Xanadu NFTs that have functionality, that maybe give them access into the ship, that maybe blossom into something that becomes a part of the actual show. And so that to me is a beautiful sort of bridge that I want to explore more so than just sort of like, I mean, I definitely love the idea of making NFTs and bringing some of this Blues world into people's sort of art galleries. But the functionality part, almost gamification of them is really freaking exciting to me as an extension to the show.
Well, I don't know if I mean, you're familiar with Bored Ape Yacht Club, I'd imagine. Like they've sort of played around a little bit, but less than what you're talking about with having an environment, the club that you can explore and walk around. And that just makes everything so much more real. That would be really cool if there were NFTs that were somehow like, or a game connected that was part of the ship, and like things in the game were like an NFT, or that thing that makes you feel as though you're getting more immersed.
Yeah,
that is super cool. Let's take a look. Let's take a look down here.
Yeah, you'll see in my next episode, I actually have a couple, my first sort of NFTs that I bought, these G-Vols. I have Blue put them in his ship as art hanging on the wall. So
yeah, I love that. I love that kind of interrelated stuff between the real world and the rest. And here are some galleries where, you know, people's NFTs can be there. What about advertisement, Cory? I mean, come on, let's get the program. What about, you know, Coca-Cola in the background, or have you? I don't know. There must be some way to get Blue to Axie Infinity Retreat. Interesting. There must be some way to get Blue playing in that world, or do you want to stay away from that?
No, I mean, the funny thing is, Blue invented this thing called Xanadu, like DEW, like Mountain Dew. And one of the episodes I have coming up is going to be him wanting to have sponsors, but nobody will sponsor him. So he sponsors himself with his own drink. But, you know, the idea of having sponsors inside Xanadu would be in line and cool, because, you know, empires are expensive to build. And
sort of what I mean. By giving him some strong and clear motivations, it's very relevant. I mean, he should be building little toys of himself everywhere, and, you know, the Blue Empire will never cease.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, some Crypto Voxels characters. I think these kind of give us a little bit of an example of how you could get some avatars going.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Have you thought about any? Because of the Hansel stuff, it made me think about a Blue fashion line. Is there anything to come there? I mean, he's pretty stylish.
There is definitely a lot to come there. I feel like he's, you know, one of the reasons why I love Artifacts so much is because I love the style. I'm into fashion, Blue's into fashion. So the idea of, you know, I think there's a lot of fashion in Blue's future. Him creating stuff for himself, possibly for the metaverse, things like that.
No, I love that. What do you think about Blue maybe being in a virtual world? So Blue being in Fortnite, or Blue being in a kind of metaverse, like, I don't know, have you kind of toyed around with some of those ideas? Like, you kind of can move around from different layers of reality?
Absolutely. Definitely. I mean, you know, one of the cool things that Blue did, or that I did for the actual show, was created this box of booty, this box that has all these alien contraptions. And through that, he's able to sort of like find these devices that allow him to teleport to places, and it doesn't break any sort of the rules. So in a way, from a story perspective, he can go and do anything that he wants. But in terms of going into something like Fortnite, I don't think there's anything off limits or that sort of breaks the idea that he's my alter ego and lives in two worlds. And yeah, Blue would love to run around in Fortnite and have an adventure in there and hook up with some other people.
I mean, that's very exciting. Or just create and build. What's next for Blue? Like, what are you excited about in the coming 6 months, and sort of where you want to go with it?
I think the most exciting thing that's kind of just emerged is this. Well, there's two things. One, I've been sort of meeting a bunch of other sort of virtual beings that are doing really cool stuff in the space.
What about Lucy? I mean, what the hell is this?
Yeah, it's like, well, I haven't met Lucy yet.
Christ. Thanks for that.
But dude, we gotta be on the
that you've been interacting with.
So there's this musician named Teflon Sega, and he's on a Discord channel that I'm on, and you know, I've just been watching his stuff, and he's a musician who's doing incredible art, you know, and he's built a really cool little meta bubble around his character and doing awesome music videos. And he's doing it all in Unreal. So I'm like, in my next episode, he doesn't know this yet, but I'm literally asking him, you know, if he wants to come hang out in Xanadu and maybe do a trade where I can like pimp out his avatar and he can write me a song for Xanadu. So that's all very exciting.
Beings have got to stick together.
Yeah, which all sort of led to my big idea. And this is total pie in the sky, but it's very exciting to me. So you know how like every downtown, a naturally emerging artist community happens, right? Some ghetto, this bunch of artists kind of get together in the same space. Sometimes they co-create or whatever. I'm thinking like, what if I build some cool studios around Xanadu and invite some other people, to other artists to kind of inhabit them? You know, maybe we do like NFTs for ownerships or whatever. And then, so now we're kind of in the same virtual space. Maybe we do crossovers. Maybe we're just doing our own thing. But then the real cool thing is, you know, did you ever see Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. You know, so you know how that started out as the space station, and the other countries came on board, then aliens started to show up.
Yeah.
And then more and more sort of aliens showed up, and it became this massive planet size. So it's kind of an organically grown sort of meta planet in my mind. So that's sort of this very pie in the sky idea.
Like the ship is kind of becoming a meta planet, and there's studios and places for artists. I love that.
Yeah. And it'll be just, you know, artists, people doing sort of this same kind of meta stuff as me, but we'll kind of do it in this, you know, virtually in this space. Obviously, your character can go anywhere at any point.
I love how decentralized that is, and I think you're totally right to get different artists with different virtual beings, not clashing with each other, but obviously every artist is going to have a slightly different style, so that friction will create a really interesting community.
Right.
And I think that's really, I love that. I think that's super cool. So I guess next Virtual Being Summit, we won't be meeting up in Crypto Voxels. Have you got a name for this kind of expanded? Is it still Xanadu at that point? If
it's kind of Planet Xanadu right now, but it's all too early for him. And I feel like there's a point where it's going to not be Xanadu anymore. It's just going to be everybody's. So Xanadu might not be.
Are you tracking Code Miko? Because I think there's interesting stuff where she's kind of been talking, not in a sci-fi sense, but like a kind of GTA carpool karaoke and like all of that kind of stuff. I'm starting to feel as though there's potentially going to be a trend of like individual metaverse worlds, meaning built around an individual character, which is very different to what we're used to of like Epic controlling Fortnite and bringing characters in, like having this sort of like 10 city block radius that she's created, you having this planet, Xanadu planet. Like, I don't know, what have you thought about Code Miko and the approach that they've taken? And then what do you think about, and what do you think about, almost you're building a metaverse with Planet Xanadu if you do that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, Code Miko and I have actually been chatting for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about doing like a collaboration, both, you know, me trying to do some live stuff with her, and then her potentially coming in and doing some kind of cinematic stuff with Blue. So she's one of those sort of metaverse characters that I'm really excited to potentially do something with, because I love everything she's doing. I think I get this impression right now she's really starting to expand her brand and explore a lot of different options and things. So it's been fun to watch what she's been doing, and I look forward to whatever we end up potentially doing.
Yeah, and I love to see two of my favorite kind of characters. Obviously, one's in space and one's not, but like, you know, favorite characters. Potentially, I'll be able to see them together and kind of breaking down the sense that just because he's on a ship, he can't interact with anyone. I love that.
I mean, in a lot of ways, it would be like a true metaverse experience, right? When
I think so.
Meta characters start hanging out with each other.
Much about the metaverse, but so many of the examples are like one company controlling one world, and like, you know, having some skins is not the same as what you're describing, where it's like really breaking the walls between worlds and being like, no, it's a metaverse, which means across, like it's supposed to be across many, many different environments and experiences. So I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that should give us a lot of connections. Is there anything I haven't asked that you think would be good. Maybe around the psychological trauma that you're experiencing, having two selves, or anything else that comes to mind that you think we should have covered.
Definitely the psychological drama is playing out and evolving because, there are moments when I feel like, Blue is driving me into the ground. And I'm like working around the clock so that he can have all these fun adventures. And so my real life is starting to
fall
dwindle. Pretty much, yes. But hey, as long as my virtual world continues to improve, who cares about reality?
My mini is literally falling apart, and like it's like 15 years old. I don't know why I don't want to upgrade it, but then I have my girlfriend just being like, we need to talk about finances, Edward. Like the amount spending on NFTs, very worrying. My brother thinks I should go to a program around it. Like it's kind of, but then yet I'm very happy with like the physical world just falling apart around me. So long as my digital goods are shiny and rare, then my whole life makes sense, apparently.
Seriously. I mean, the funny thing is, it reminded me, like, my holy grail for me is when you can do what I'm doing with the motion capture suit and the face capture in VR, right? So like I can put on a headset, get good quality facial capture and body capture. So I can make shows sort of in Xanadu versus outside of Xanadu. And I'm pretty convinced that when that actually happens, and you're making the shows, doing real virtual production in the ship, going on these adventures for real in VR, I'm like, dude, I really am going to have a Howard Hughes moment where you're just like, reality is going to become this distant thing and Blue is going to become Cory, or the other, however you look at it. But and I don't think that day is too far away. So we'll see.
That's not, I agree with you. That's hardly a pie in the sky technical goal. That's a reasonable goal to have. And it's just making me think about wanting to be on Star Trek or all of that. Like they had Star Trek Bridge Crew, which was a cool VR game, but it didn't really somehow it didn't activate it. But if I could go on new adventures with Blue as sort of a red shirt and I get killed every episode or something. But there's something to that is quite inspiring. Both as a viewer, I could just be like a camera watching, but I could also maybe, if I pay extra, actually be a red shirt and get killed on the second that I beam down to the next planet. I don't know. There's a lot. That's really cool. Like that. That's getting more towards what I was trying to do with VR movies and what we've both talked about with VR content. Like something that's fully immersive, that's in between a game and a movie. Like that's super cool.
Yeah, and audience participation, that interactivity. Exactly. It's so. I mean, the possibilities are endless, right? And we're just at the early stages of, and I feel like Xanadu is kind of like, all right, let's build a cool world, build some cool characters, and then just put everything into trying to get people into that world to experience it. Like you said, just being in the ship while an episode is happening in VR as a fly on the wall, or if you have the right NFT, it's like you can actually be in the show. Your camera can move around. You can talk to Blue, and Blue can talk to you. Like this stuff thrills me to no end because it's just spontaneous. It's bridging these worlds, and it's gaming, it's cinema, it's sort of audience participation in a way that's impossible without all this stuff. So,
yeah. Well, super cool. Thank you so much for taking the time, and thank Blue. Sorry, I almost got you guys. Thank Blue as well. And this is so exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was a lot of fun.